Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the
of the
United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so is there, I know there's some additions to the agenda. So instead of approving the agenda in front of us, one of the additions is adding the dog issue on Newton Street. Do you want to just go ahead of the Marble Museum? Greg, we'll put it right before there.
Sure. I've got Ben Doyle is already here coming in. So
Okay.
if we wanted to do it before the Marble Museum, I think that'd be okay.
All right, I just don't want him having to wait too long.
Yeah, I mean, whoever you want, doesn't matter. I don't think their presentation or their thing's going to take too awful long, but we can do
Okay.
whichever you'd prefer.
Okay, so we'll add the dog issue right ahead the Marble Museum. And was there another change in the agenda?
I don't think so.
Rink.
I'm sorry, what, Bruce?
The rink.
A rink?
Yes,
You wanted to add the rink?
yes, please.
Okay, we'll put that down below.
So
Okay.
where do you want to put it below?
We'll just do it, I guess after we do our committees, additional items, correct? Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the agenda with the two additions of the dog issue on Newton Street and the Proctor skating rink?
Approve, motion approved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So review of the February 8th regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Review of the February 11th special meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And is there a motion to approve the February 17th special meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So open public comment. Right now, the only thing we have on there is the dog issue. Would you, Jim or Deb, like to speak to that?
Yeah, let me unmute real quick. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Hear and see.
So I received the, I guess the
Did they see your pictures?
minutes of the, or I received the minutes of the meeting that you guys had regarding this. And I, just not to take up too much of your time, did you receive the pictures, statements, and everything that's, and as well as link to video?
Yes.
And have you guys reviewed them?
Yes. I have personally.
I have.
Okay, so I don't want to be like too redundant and say the same thing that if you guys have already read our statements that we are going to be making to the officer, that he has to, I forget the proper term, but whatever it is that he does make it official. I can reread, I can take my statements or tell you what, or I think that would probably be redundant. So,
They violated.
but the end of the game is that they violated what the select board had said for that dog. I forget the dog's name.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
You might want to give them a little bit of background on what statement you're talking about, because there was over the weekend, right? You had made a call to the sheriff.
Yeah, it was two. The first incident was on February 19th at 4:52 when we were shoveling shoveling in our backyard. That was the first. Sorry, I apologize. Thank you, Mom. She's correcting me. Incident one, incident one was when it was 4:52, right? We were just inside cooking dinner when my mom yelled that, hey, she thinks she hears a dog barking and growling. And all of a sudden she became very like her she was no longer able to cook due to PTSD. I had to sit her down, calm her down. I went upstairs to see what the heck was going on, and they had a dog that was not restrained or muzzled. That was required.
Running around the yard.
And so I took a couple pictures of the dog, and I did a video. The video of that particular incident is not the best. It kind of catches the dog at the 4-minute mark or 4-second mark, I think, kind of towards the back. But it was running around, and it wasn't restrained or muzzled. The second time was on February 20th at 9:37 a.m. I was simply just shoveling our driveway, and then I was sprinkling some salt. And as I was entering our house, all of a sudden I started hearing barking and growling. And so I went over to the bushes, which is kind of what separates our two properties, and took a video of this time. The dog was on a leash, but it was not muzzled at all. And the particular owner, I guess it was the owner of the dog, or my mom says the son of the owner of the dog, was telling, I asked why was the dog not on a muzzle, and he was saying it was because I was harassing his dog, which was not the case, because the beginning of the growling and barking was me entering my back, our building. So it wasn't me involved with the dog at all. It was when there was no involvement with me interacting with that dog except for taking a video. And I have provided a video as well as pictures to both. I think it was I believe you guys all have them, as well as we were instructed to, whenever that we see an incident occur, to call the police. So that's what we did. And so I forget his name. You probably know his name, Mom, better than me.
Officer Riley?
Riley.
Deputy O'Reilly came and looked at the pictures as well as the videos
And spoke to them.
and spoke to them. He's coming.
After these 2 incidents you're talking about.
Correct. After the 2 incidents.
Okay.
He's coming back because he needs to get
sign his,
get our
he needs
our
to witness
statements
our signature.
as well as I guess signature. And so that's where we are.
Okay. And I think everyone got both. I got both of your statements. Everyone got those, as well as the videos and as well as the photos. So we know the whole background.
Can I
what happened.
say one thing?
Excuse me?
Could I say one thing?
Mhm.
I just want to say that I moved here in 2017, and I have been afraid since 2017 because they keep coming through the bushes. The first time they tried to attack Bentley, and a neighbor picked Bentley up. The second time they came through the bushes when I was working outside on the picnic table and tried to attack Bentley. And they said, "Oh, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. They're friendly." And then they came over and took them back. I'm petrified every time I go food shopping and I pull into my garage, and then I have to walk from my garage to my back door. All I hear is growling and barking, and there is no fence, no safety, no nothing. There's spaces between those hedges, and I feel like my well-being is at risk. I now have PTSD diagnosed by the doctor, as well as tomorrow I'm going for my first visit after the surgery, where they put in, because my bone was broken by the dog, they put in a screw, and tomorrow we'll know how it's doing. I am tired of being afraid, living in fear because of their negligence. I just can't do it anymore.
Okay, so I guess my question is based on, I don't have any questions for you because my question is based on the letter that we sent to them, what has actually occurred and actually has been done from that letter. So first of all, if they have a fence, which they do, an underground fence, has anybody checked to make sure it works? That's an easy fix. That's an easy check. Go down there, check, see if it works, see if the collars work. Are the 2 dogs registered as of yet?
No. Go ahead, Jim. Can I step in? So I talked with Deputy Riley about 1 o'clock, actually 1:30 when he came on. He came on at 2 o'clock. And he had told me that, well, I told him that the dogs have not been registered. So today was, according to the letter, I believe today or yesterday actually was the day that the 1 dog had to be gone.
So somebody's got something on because there's feedback. Does anybody have a cell phone or 2 phones going or something? I just hear feedback when Greg talks.
If somebody can maybe mute themselves, I can try to mute everybody. I'm going to probably let me mute everybody and then you'll have to unmute to talk.
Okay.
Besides myself and she muted. Okay. So I think we're good. So Duke it was required that he be gone by February 21st. So, and then the other dog had to be within 2 days of receiving the letter. And I received the certified letter, the green card back on the 17th. So they technically had till the end of day on Friday. Again, today's Monday. And I talked with the sheriff. We have no evidence that anybody has been in to license the dog. George, we're talking about at this point. The officer was going to after I talked with him, he was going to go out to the house and find out whether or not Duke was still there because he's not supposed to be there. He was also going to write a ticket for not having a license for George. As well as we need to figure out kind of moving forward. There is a statute that is quoted within the dog ordinance that refers to what we do next when there's a violation of the letter that the select board brought forth. We're having a couple issues with trying to figure out that ordinance, and we can talk about that later on. But that's, from my understanding, that's what's happened so far. Is over the weekend there were some issues. The sheriff went out. He took he took the statements. I think now he's asking to come back to have you sign and swear and certify those statements. And then he also was going to be doing the ticket for the 2 days of not having the license. And then we're going to move forward on what we have to do with the other violations that are now in place, or could be in place. One being the dog. I don't know, Jim, or did you guys see the other dog there this weekend, or was it just the one?
At all. But we have a question
I do have
as to what Judy just said.
I do have one question to Judy's comment, because I'm getting it's not, you guys aren't making it clear. First of all, an electric collar is not a restraint. And I asked the board, are you guys considering that a restraint? Because the Humane Society and animal organizations don't. It's there to train a dog, a boarder, because it does not prevent an animal from leaving an area. All it does is give it a quick jolt just to remind it to not leave this particular area. But once it leaves the area, it's fine. It's not a restraint. So I asked that when I read the results of the meeting on the 17th, I said, does the electric collar, are you guys counting that as a restraint? And I was told no, that is not a restraint. It has to be a physical leash, muzzle, or some sort of cage.
Right, and that's correct. Let me just correct. I wasn't saying the fence, underground fence, and the collar are a restraint in one of our criteria. I'm just saying when they kept leaving their dogs out, it was a simple thing to go and check the fence to see what was actually working, or were they just saying they have a fence and the collars don't work. So I just want clarification from them. Are they actually, using a collar that has batteries in it that does work? So it does keep them in the yard more so. That wasn't part of our criteria. It was they have to be muzzled and they have to be on a leash when they're outdoors at any time. So I think my question here, and actually my steps going forward, they got the letter. Now we have to rely on the officer to go back there, get your written statements signed, and then he has to do this follow-up. He has to make sure that that dog is gone. That hound dog is gone. Duke's not on the premises. He has to make sure that the other one is registered, licensed. And I think based on our ordinance and what we talked about last time is if that's not the case, then the dogs can be impounded. So they can be taken away.
So here's where we're having a bit of a hiccup here. Under the protective order section of our ordinance that we did back, I don't know, a few months ago, it says a person who after receiving notice fails to comply with the terms of the order, and this is talking about a protective order from the select board, shall be subject to the penalties provided in 20 VSA state statute 3550. If you go on and look for that statute, it's not there. It doesn't exist. We don't know. So he and his cohorts at the sheriff's department are doing research as to where it is, if it's still valid, because on the online search and actually in the books we have downstairs, state statute 20 VSA 3550 do not exist. So there's a little bit of a delay here. He is going to move forward and write the ticket for not having the license because that's one that's within our ordinance. But we're just got the other ones, we've got this potential for the dog not being restrained, not having the muzzle, and then, potentially other ones. Those are the ones that we're trying to kind of find out what this ordinance says, or what this ordinance, the statute says, and, as far as how we're supposed to move forward. So that's been a bit of a delay in just trying to find the statute so that we can reference that and sort of see what the next steps look like. You are right, Judy. If that dog is deemed to be potentially vicious in any way, then they have the right, they being the sheriff, to impound that animal.
I don't want to be disrespectful, but I believe it does exist because I was having, like you said, a hard time finding it.
You found it.
And I believe my sister found it and sent me a link to it.
Can you link it to me? Because what I do is I go to the state.
I don't want to leave the meeting to try to find it, but
so I go to the Vermont General Assembly, and it was
really hard to find.
and it's actually there by title and chapter and everything, and 20 VSA, it's just not there. There are other ones that are right there, but it's odd. So if you have something that you can help me with, I'll be more than happy to take a look at it. Like I said, the sheriff they're doing there on their end too, trying to find out where it went and where it is. But if you follow it, through the Vermont General Assembly, it's just not showing up.
So that ordinance is direct from Vermont League of Cities and Towns. So that might be the key to finding it. It is direct from there, and I'm looking to see if I can find it in my book.
Okay, great.
Can you say what it is again? So I have that, please. I'm sorry.
It's 20 VSA
right.
3550.
You have it?
Yeah, and
Jim has it.
It's 35. It's 3550 enforcement municipal. It's municipal.
Municipal
legislative body
commissioner,
and then that tells what they do per it. I can send you the link.
So is it Title 20, just like your?
It is.
It's 20 VSA 3550.
Yeah.
It's under.
It is in here. If the dog's found to be bitten the victim without provocation, the select board shall make such order for protection of persons as the facts and circumstances the case may require, including without limitation, the dog is euthanized, muzzled, chained, or confined. The order shall be sent by certified mail, return receipt. A person who, after receiving notice, fails to comply with the terms of this order shall be subject to penalties provided in 20 VSA section 3550.
Are you on the General Assembly?
No, I just went into, I just Googled under Vermont state statutes for dog ordinances.
Okay. So that was, I think the sheriff had told me he had found it as well. They're just checking the validity to make sure that it wasn't something, because it's not on the resource that we all use to try to find, all these statutes. It's not showing up. He just wants to make sure that it is valid. Any links you guys have, if you don't mind, send them to me and we'll follow up on them, just to make sure they're valid. And if they are, that's what we'll move forward with. And
Okay,
we'll
so
start
if the board's okay with this, I would suggest that we get that statute to you so that when the officer meets with you, hopefully tomorrow, and
Right.
he goes down there, that he takes the necessary steps to make these people abide by the order that we first put into place. And if not, then, if the dog one's gone and the other one's still there, they either confine it the way we placed in the order, or the dog gets impounded.
Right.
I
Yeah.
would also like to add that they also need to get that evaluation that was also in that order. And they
Yeah.
only have a certain amount of time left to get that evaluation. And we also haven't gotten the letter that hound was surrendered.
Right. Right. So it's all those things that he'll be checking for. He was going to come in tonight and talk with us, but with the snow, who knows? But I'll catch back up with him tomorrow. He has the letter. He knows what the requirements are. I just don't know exactly after the visit he had today where everything stands.
Okay.
And if we can find that statute, that'll basically tell us what the enforcement piece of this is, and that's what we'll move forward with.
All right. Is everybody on the board on the same page with this? Okay. All right.
So can you just line out exactly what you're doing? Because you've talked about a lot of different things so that I'm clear.
Sure. Okay, so if no one else can, I'll find the statute directly from the source, send it to Greg so he can share it with the officer. The officer will go and meet tomorrow down in Newton Street with Jim and Debbie and get their signed statements. And then I think he needs to visit the next door neighbors to see if one of the dogs is actually returned to the rescue. And if not, then there'll be fine for that as well, I would believe. And then he basically has to show them the order again, I would think, saying what we put in place. And if not, then he has the right to impound them. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it, Judy.
Okay. You got that, Lisa?
I do. Thank you.
Okay. All right. You're welcome. All right. Thank you, Jim and Debbie.
Thank you. We appreciate your guys' time, especially because it was
Yeah,
not on
well.
the board agenda.
All right. Thank you both.
And
Yeah,
this time, I guess
I do.
we will leave, and that would be appropriate.
Excuse
Thank
me?
you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Leave.
Bye.
Thanks. Okay. Moving on to the Preservation Trust and the Marble Museum. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everybody.
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having us. I'm Ben Doyle. I'm the president of the Preservation Trust, and I'm joined by my colleague, Lawrence Miller. Lawrence, I don't think we coordinated on our outfits, but somehow it all seemed to have worked out. But really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I would just say right off the bat, honestly, we're here because of the letter that you sent, and I'm very, I know that you're concerned about what's happening at the 52 Main and at the Marble Museum, and I would say I'm equally concerned, and also just really want to, I guess, thank you for reaching out. I think it's really critical that for a successful outcome here that we have really open and clear communication, and if there's anything that I can do to provide that additional information, we want to do it. So I guess I just want to start by saying thank you for reaching out when you had questions. I'm happy to try and answer them. Can I ask how I can be most helpful? I mean, I was thinking I could give you, your letter was asking what are the kind of immediate plans and things like that. I can give you kind of a status update on, spend 5 minutes just talking about where we are, what we're thinking, and, what opportunities there might be for partnership.
Sure. I think that'd be great. Because I think bottom line is we just want to know, is the museum ever going to open again?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. All right. So let me tell you where we are, if that's okay. And I'll just quickly start, I'm sure that many of you probably knew my predecessor, Paul Bruin, who was the president of the Preservation Trust for 40 years. And many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Lawrence, who I think has attended a number of meetings before. I'm probably a newer face. I've been on the job for 4 months as the president of the Preservation Trust, but I'm really familiar with Proctor. Before I took this job, I was the assistant state director for USDA rural development and did a lot of community and economic development work, including some work involving the Marble Museum, and have done also a lot of work with the Vermont Council on Rural Development, which I know I wasn't able to participate in the community visioning process in Proctor, but really familiar with that process and kind of have some experience with community and economic development in the Rutland region. So that's kind of how I ended up here. And, you know, I would just say, again, thank you for reaching out, but also just want to thank the town for its concern about the Marble Museum and partnership with us in, you know, in helping to keep the building vital and active. So at the risk of maybe providing too much context or going over ground that you've already covered, I just want to remind folks of what the Preservation Trust's involvement is with the Vermont Marble Museum, and you know what are we doing here? Why we got involved in it? You know, I think the board of the Preservation Trust and my predecessor Paul Brune really recognized when the Vermont Marble Company and the Marble Museum was at risk of being sold and the collection of the museum being broken up, that to break it up and send it to various parts of the country would really be unfortunate for the history of our state and ultimately of our country, right? Given the important role in the history that company played in the really critical story about Vermont that property and the museum attempts to tell. And so we saw a real need to try and find a way to preserve the collection, to keep it together, and then frankly also to help support community and economic vitality in Proctor. You know, our mission as an organization is to promote community and economic development through a lens of historic preservation. How do we take historic assets and turn them into things that can generate economic opportunity and community vitality? So we saw in this moment when the collection was at risk and the assets in danger of being disaggregated, we saw a real need to become involved in help support the Vermont Marble Museum, ultimately to become a self-sustaining entity that could continue to tell the story as a nonprofit organization as opposed to the wing of a for-profit entity. And, you know, we've been involved now for about 8 or 9 years in this project. And a lot of these things take time. But I think generally, I feel like we've accomplished what the trust set out to do in terms of the collection. You know, most of the collection remains together. And in terms of the economic asset that is 52 Main, you know, we have taken a number of steps to make enhancements to the building to try and put it in a position where it is both maintained, but also put it in a position where it could serve as a kind of, as an economic asset. It was never the Preservation Trust's intention to own and operate the Vermont Marble Museum indefinitely. Our role is really a catalytic one in communities, and we've done this across the state with you know, various different projects, various community-supported enterprises where we work with a nonprofit organization to build its capacity, to build a structure so that it can kind of spin off and again be self-sustaining. And our hope was and remains that could happen with the Vermont Marble Museum board. You know, we helped create a board, helped build capacity of that organization, trying to get them to a place where they could ultimately take over complete ownership of the collection and the building. I'll be frank, that's proven challenging for a variety of reasons. One, just the economic realities of rural America, but also some specific challenges around the economic model of the museum as it was previously constituted. And then when on top of that, when you throw in the pandemic, you know, that's proven extremely challenging for museums and cultural institutions across the state. And so, you know, I think it's important to acknowledge those challenges. And I can tell you that it's resolving them is a priority for the trust. You know, when I was hired 4.5 months ago, the very first meeting I had with the Board of Trustees was about the Vermont Marble Museum. And, you know, how are we continuing to support this organization, and how are we continuing to kind of meet our goals around community and economic vitality for Proctor? That's frankly driven by the people in that community, right? That it's up to the folks in Proctor to determine what their economic future is going to look like. So I want to acknowledge those challenges in terms of the immediate kind of goals, what we've done recently. You know, Lawrence, I think as many of you know, has really been working as a kind of critical point person and consultant for the Preservation Trust as a liaison between our organization and the Vermont Marble Museum, really providing technical expertise and strategic planning, both for the Marble Museum as an organization and to help manage the building itself and the various kind of challenges around that property, which are significant, and again, which I think many of you know about, and we have tried to address many of them. What we've done recently is, you know, the museum did close before the pandemic forced it to. You know, obviously it would have been forced to have closed with the pandemic, but it really closed before that to address just some of those structural challenges around the economic model of operating a museum and the way that it had been operating. And the pandemic kind of exacerbated that situation. I'd say, Lawrence, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say probably 10 to 12 weeks ago, we really engaged in a deep strategic planning process with the Vermont Marble Museum to help them identify what's next for them. You know, is it going to continue to be a museum? If so, what's the story that the museum's trying to tell? What's the economic model for making the museum sustainable? And we've met weekly with the board of the Marble Museum, I would say for the past 10 weeks, to develop a kind of strategic vision for them moving forward to ultimately be a self-sustaining and independent entity that would have ownership of the collection. I should also say that the other thing that we've begun thinking about is ultimately, you know, as I said, Preservation Trust, it was never our intent to be the long-term owner of this building. Our primary goals for being involved in the building in the first place was to preserve the collection and promote community and economic vitality, opportunities for economic development. We completely remain committed to those two goals, but what that looks like might change in the sense that we, I think, are positioning our, you know, beginning to explore what a transition out of the building or transition of ownership of the building would look like. And, you know, again, our hope was that the Vermont Marble Museum would become a self-sustaining entity that could control ownership of the building. You know, that may prove to be the case, but I think we've come to acknowledge that we might need to explore other options for ownership as well, in which the Vermont Marble Museum potentially could be a tenant of a building that's owned either by a nonprofit organization independently, or perhaps a for-profit entity that is interested in a partnership with the Vermont Marble Museum for a home. I know this isn't probably the kind of clarity that you're looking for. You know, I think probably everybody wants to know, what does the Vermont Marble Museum in 52 Main look like 3 years from now? I honestly, I can't provide you with that answer. What I can tell you is that we're really committed to those initial goals that we identified, that we're working really hard to achieve them. And that, you know, we have confidence that the Marble Museum board, after the strategic planning process, at least has a vision and a direction that they're moving into with some real milestones of what success will look like. And then simultaneously, you know, we're beginning to explore partnership opportunities to transition ownership to a more sustainable long-term owner of the property. At a certain point, the best thing that we can do is find an owner of that property that's in better positioned to turn it into the economic asset that it could be. And I don't think that that's us over, you know, the long term. And, you know, for us, transition out of the building isn't about getting every dollar back that we put into it. It's about, you know, we're a mission-driven organization. Our primary goals are the ones that we identified right at the beginning, to help ensure that the collection stays together to the degree that it can, and that there's economic opportunity in Proctor. So I guess what I would say is I'm happy to answer any questions. Lawrence certainly has a wealth of knowledge on both the building, the museum, the structure, but I just personally want you to know that we're working hard and we're trying. And, you know, Greg has been great and participated in one of our strategic planning meetings with some economic development folks in Rutland to think about potential partnerships. but it's going to take a lot of conversations. It's going to take a lot of thought and optimism and partnership to make something positive happen. But that's what we're committed to.
Thank you, Ben. Does anybody have any questions specific to what he just shared with us, or just prior to when we decided to send the letter?
Are there any local people on the Vermont Marble Museum board?
The board right now is Bob and Vicki Young, Mary Cohen,
Bob Stein.
There are 3 new members. Ann Cousins is a liaison from the Preservation Trust Board, who is a historic preservation professional. She's been with the organization for a long time and is really committed to the Marble Museum project. Professor Ann Tate, now from University in Providence, Rhode Island, who has a lot of national connections, and Dennis Montagna from the National Park Service in his personal capacity, who also has a deep bench and national connections. There are 3 additional positions available on the board. It's the bylaws speak to a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 11. So they are anticipating recruiting additional. I would say the fundraising efforts over the years, locally and within Rutland County, have not had the sort of scope that was necessary to deal with the museum's long-term goals. I think where they're settled now is that this is really where the monuments to democracy have come from internationally. The major buildings in DC, the monuments in graveyards around the world, even the Chiang Kai-shek Memorial in Taipei. That there is a national relevance to this that has not been really explored from a fundraising perspective on the Marble Museum side. So I think they'll continue to expand the board to tap that. I would expect that some of the folks who have been on the board for 6 years will also be looking over the next couple of years at alternatives for their participation, as it's been a long run.
I would just also point out to Laura Trieschman, who's the director for the Department of Historic Preservation at the state of Vermont, also recently joined the board. I mean, I think just to reiterate Lawrence's point, I think frankly, as like the new guy to the party, like it feels like for a long time, the Marble Museum was looking at an existing model that was built upon gift shop sales and bus tours. And in a time of COVID and the internet, that business model isn't really sustainable. And so part of the strategic planning process has said, well, if not that, then what? And I think really doubling down on the idea that this site is of national significance, that by focusing on that, it ends up opening up a range of funding sources for preserving and activating the collection that otherwise wouldn't be available. And I think the newer board members that have been recruited as a result of the strategic planning process reflects that direction, given that that's the opportunity and their expertise would be brought to bear.
So go ahead, Lisa.
So I have a couple of questions, because it sounds like to me you're saying 2 different things. At one point, you're saying that this model doesn't really work, but we're looking to see how it's going to work. And 2, on the other hand, we're looking to transition out of the building. And then you want to talk about preservation of the collection. So my question is, if you transition out, what, how much notice would we be given as a community? And would there be any opportunity to keep any of the collection in Proctor? I'm sure Lawrence recalls there's a great deal of angst still that the collection was taken and at the university, because those archives are not available. It's my understanding after the last time I was speaking to the university, they have yet to be cataloged. So there's some discontent about that. There's a great deal of history there that is pertinent simply to Proctor. We can talk about national, we can talk about the business model, and that's how it was sold to the university. But there's a great deal of photography and other things that are pertinent here to Proctor history. So if you are serious about preservation, and if you are serious about rural communities and the preservation, what would be your thought in allowing the local community, should you transition out, to be the keeper of archives that are pertinent to Proctor?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question. I think we are serious about both of those things. And what I would say is that our hope is that the Vermont Marble Museum is successful in preserving and activating the collection, and that it does so in Proctor, right? And I totally hear your point. We're talking about this kind of national story, but it's also fundamentally a story of Proctor and its history. And our goal is to make sure that the collection is preserved, that the story is told, and that the best steward of that collection is identified to do that. It is absolutely our preference that be a local actor. If it's not an organization in Proctor, that it be so in Vermont. If it's not in Vermont, that it be someone that provides access to those resources. I mean, we want to make sure ultimately that the collection is safe and preserves its integrity as much as possible. It's absolutely our preference that it happen in Proctor. So to get really specific about your question, I think our hope is that the Marble Museum becomes the entity that can do that sustainably over the long term and do it successfully. If the board called up tomorrow and said, you know what, we're done, we quit, we're dissolving the museum, the next step would be, who are those local actors or organizations in Proctor or the near, the surrounding region that could demonstrate an ability to be a responsible steward of that collection. And if we could identify that in the local community, that would absolutely be our preference.
I think, to jump on that I go back trying to tease this apart. I was Secretary of Commerce when this was originally done. And so I was watching the process, and when the Hems were selling the business, and, the trust worked for a long time trying to raise all the money necessary to buy the Hems out and keep everything locally. And it just wasn't the cash available that the Hems were looking for to do that deal. And so the folks at the University of Pennsylvania hopped in kind of at the last minute, mustered a bunch more cash to buy some of the collection that wound up out of state. And that resource question, we don't want to see repeated. That was really unfortunate. So it does take a lot of cash, frankly, to do the archiving correctly. It has not been done correctly yet. Either that which is still in Proctor, or that which UPenn has. It hasn't been fully cataloged. It's secure and safe, but we really want to see them step up and get that stuff digitized. We have had fruitful conversations with them over the last few months about how to bring the elements of the collection back together and make available some of that, at least digitally, some of that which is not here, and also be able to borrow pieces back from the University of Pennsylvania. The lead there really feels like they were stepping in an emergency situation, so it didn't just get scattered to the winds in pieces. How to repatriate it is an entirely different question. When we talk about it from a national perspective, that really is a question of how to attract funding to Proctor, not so much as to, hey, what's out there that the story should be told elsewhere. It's how does the story get told here. This was one of the largest companies in the country at the time, one of the largest companies in the world, had a massive impact. And so, we've got an indication that there is an interest level in providing support out there. That's what we're looking to achieve. And the division of the Preservation Trust's role and the Marble Museum role, I think to me, it's a positive one. The Marble Museum Board got heavily distracted by the building itself. And I can't find anything in common between being the executive director of a museum and thinking about educational programs and thinking forward about communication and interpretation and taking care of historical things and figuring out tenant relationships and what happens when the tank in the basement freezes and stuff like that. They're just two very different roles. And this building has two parts. As a landlord to the Marble Museum, is the best place to interpret all of that collection, all of the different parts of that collection, because it's where it happened. But there's the rest of the building, which serves as a resource for economic development. The brewery still wants to go in there when we get past COVID. There's space that could be usable if we get past a few more things. Building needs a new roof, needs to be reclad, needs to be painted. We've got to resolve the right-of-way issues with the railroad, with Amtrak coming through, and building 29A that runs right up to the railroad. The electrical service is way oversized for what's in the building now. There's pieces of it that are falling out. The north wall connects to the building that the Hems still own. If they don't maintain that building and their roof goes, we can see the north wall go. So there's a whole bunch that has to happen for the building itself, separate from the museum. So that's why there's this bifurcation of roles that says, hey, we really need a good custodian of the building that's good at that, in addition to giving the Marble Museum the time to focus on operating a museum and not a gift shop with exhibits attached. There's some really strong potential there that nobody's had the time or energy or space to really pay attention to.
I would just add to that, all those things that Lawrence just described, I think we at the Trust, we saw our role as playing a transitionary role to allow space for new partnerships to emerge that could actually do that work. But to be honest, our organization doesn't have the capacity to do that in the same way that a kind of a true nuts and bolts economic development corporation or organization would do, or frankly, a private developer, right? And so I think where we are now is that we've done a lot to kind of smooth the way for a new ownership model to come in and fully activate that and manage that building. But ultimately the learning here, right, the learning opportunity that we've identified is that it doesn't make sense for the Marble Museum. Well, it's proven incredibly challenging for the Marble Museum to focus on two different things, right? And so the degree to which we can, find somebody who's better positioned to focus on the building will ultimately help provide an opportunity for the Marble Museum to be more successful, ideally, in that space.
There are two other bright points I want to touch on just briefly while I'm at it. None of the funding that came through last year through the CARES Act or the Coronavirus Relief Fund had any relevance for the Marble Museum because of the timing of the seasonality of the business. It just weren't qualified for PPP or any of that. The museum is qualified for the shuttered venue grant opportunity, which is coming up. SBA has posted it, so we do expect to get some resources in from that. The bill that will come out of the House tomorrow, the Vermont House also processing the next bill, which will include resources for all of the municipalities. So I gather you're going to be trying to figure out what to do with about $175,000 to $185,000 not long from now. There'll be some grant opportunities for the museum and that as well. So we do see things getting going again next year.
So I know it's getting kind of late here, and I think the issue at hand is much bigger than just the Marble Museum. And it's unfortunate because I think the players all involved aren't good players. And I'm going to say that up front. And I think it's hurt us from day one when they took the building over. And it's really hurt the town of Proctor. And I don't think we've gone anywhere with them in terms of trying to make efforts into keeping that building. And like you said, you pour money into the museum, which you'd need to do. If other people aren't willing to keep their bargain up, you're going to have this little, Taj Mahal in the middle of something crumbling all around it. And the museum, as much as I would love it the way it used to be, it will never be that way again. We don't have the company that existed to make those products. They were right there, right next door, making lamps and tables and everything. And that was even a bigger draw to come to the museum. You actually saw stuff being made and, by the people here in our town and surrounding towns, creating it with their own hands. And it was a legacy for Proctor. The Marble Museum was, I rode my bike there every day, saw the same marble every day, but it was a great place to go. And I've seen it transition, and even as a venue for rentals, it's beautiful. But like you said, if you don't have the support from other people utilizing that building, then what's the point at some time of putting so much time and effort into this when all of a sudden you're going to look out the doors and, like you said, the walls are going to be down around you, the roof's going to be caving in. So I get that. I'd hate to see the museum leave, but I think we need a bigger meeting and bringing people to the table and saying, hey, listen, you want to be part of our town, you got to help contribute and, help us out here instead of just buying a building and letting it decay, which is what they've done.
And I should say I did have the first conversation I've ever had with Max Hem, the son. Is starting to get involved in their properties. And because we're looking at this question, I asked if they would consider new ownership for that parcel as well, because I think there's a good opportunity there, as well as the fact that once the Amtrak comes through, of course, there's a risk of landlocking that property, which would make it, I'm concerned because of fire suppression. How do you easily get in there? What are the opportunities for that parcel as well? So we're taking an active interest in that and trying to facilitate something there as well. They're all in Europe. So we'll see how that goes. But I do think that whole contiguous parcel, from a long-term perspective for Proctor, we want to be able to work together to find a good outcome for that as well. So
Okay.
we're committed to working with you on that.
So just from the board's perspective, and does anyone have questions or comments that you want to make? Or, what's your opinion as far as bringing more people to the table to make, that whole parcel something more viable?
We're going to go ahead and put out an RFP. As Ben said, the trust isn't terribly worried about selling the building. It's more a question of what's the appropriate conveyance, and that will probably include fundraising to help the new proprietor of the building, replace the roof and do much of the other work that needs to be done. right? This whole thing went off only partly funded 6 years ago. And it really needs to, okay, pause, figure out what needs to be done, really fund for it. And, so that's true regardless of who happens to own the building after any date in the future. And it can't just be left there to fall apart. There's a lot of public money already in it. And it's sitting right in the middle of town. We don't consider failure to be an option. It's got to be stabilized. So I expect by going through that kind of process, we're hoping to gather a number of people with historic building experience, with experience using different forms of tax credits. What's the benefit of an opportunity zone? What's the implications of other tools to use right now, as well as what are the opportunities given all of the funding that's coming into Vermont right now. Because Vermont has such a small population, we qualify for a small state minimum thanks to Senator Leahy's oversight, right? So we've got about 5 times the money per capita coming into Vermont in relief funds from this most recent act. So Vermont will have about $600 million going through the state, municipal, local, and nonprofit relief over the next little while as this bill comes through. We would have had about $120 million on a per capita basis. So I think we're prepared to go have this conversation with the legislature, with others, to say, this is a local and a regional opportunity. And let's go ahead and continue with the investment that's been made in the fire suppression system, in other parts of the building, and not abandon it.
So I guess
I'm sorry, just real quick. I think Lawrence is exactly right. But I mean, just in terms of immediate next steps, I just want to be clear, we are going to be putting out an RFP, asking folks, different either for-profit or nonprofit entities, give us your vision, demonstrate that, this is a property that you could activate and help realize its potential. And, our primary evaluation criteria for those proposals will be to the benefit of the community and to the collective.
Would you do us a favor once you have those RFPs back and you've come to, kind of further down the road as to what next steps are, you kind of come back and share that with us?
I would actually, this is another reason why I'm really happy to be here. I think we need to have that conversation even sooner than that, right? I think it would be wonderful if we saw somebody come through the door with a completed RFP and it all just worked out. I think really what's going to happen is a complex series of conversations and partnership opportunities with folks, perhaps even looking at what are the incentives available for somebody to come in and actually do something great with this place. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is not only do I want to circle back to you and be here are the people that we identified, I would hope that we could really engage either with this board or with the larger community about what those partnerships and opportunities might look like.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions or comments that they want to make? Lisa?
Did you ever think about the marble building and moving the museum there and taking ownership of that? I mean, let's be honest. You could put hundreds of thousands of dollars into this museum, and it's not going to be a year-round facility. I mean, everyone that's seated here tonight knows that. I mean, it's almost kind of throwing good money after bad. So I'm wondering if you've looked to the hill where the marble building sets and think about that. And when you talk about transformation and preservation, and I mean, there's no greater monument to marble than that building and the marble that's in that building. So I'm wondering if that has ever been a consideration.
Yeah, it was. I went to the auction, and I think that's when we all sort of got a new perspective on all of this, honestly. And then did have a series of conversations with the folks who bought the admin building at the auction, with exactly that in mind, and a question of, what part the Marble Museum could occupy, whether or not the upper floors could be housing, what kind of blended project could be put together to draw down the different funding tools, and including at that time, the question was, would the town actually be served by taking some part of that building instead? And I think the folks who were running that project sort of hit a wall and couldn't make the whole thing work. But I'm still intrigued by that, and we have said to the Marble Museum Board, you don't have to stay in the building at 52 Main Street. If the Marble Museum wants to relocate, the Preservation Trust would be supportive of that as well. We're not putting any requirement on them to stay at 52 Main Street. When I looked at some of the logistics associated with moving Marble, I got a little intimidated. You're not going to do it, on a weekend with some help. But it is certainly true that the floors in the admin building appear to be engineered, way beyond what's necessary to support the exhibits. That's certainly true. The elevator is completely serviceable. I think the loss of those parking spots that got sold during the auction is a little unfortunate, but that upper lot is really the better place to have buses come in and cycle through, with a new upper story walkway across. So I don't see that as a end knell for that building. But I think that's you raise a very good point. And it's also true that there are different components of the collection that, may or may not be the most relevant to be on display at any given time. The slab room is really cool, and there's people who come and see that and are just blown away. The Supreme Court fascia and the Beinecke fascia are both extraordinary, and you could probably move Beinecke. Moving the Supreme Court seems a big challenge, but we want to see those pieces stay accessible. That doesn't. One of the things I thought about was, what if you moved the Marble Museum offices, classroom, and the archives over to the admin building, and then maintained the second floor of the Marble Museum where it is now as a seasonal property, so that you would have year-round in one building, not try and move everything and continue to have seasonal where it's in that location. And I think those options should continue to be on the table for the Marble Museum Board.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are great ideas. My last question is, if a nonprofit comes in and they have a plan and you transfer ownership, is there any kind of conveyance or covenant that says that the collection cannot be broken up? Or once that is transferred, it's fair game?
Sorry, just clarifying question. You're asking if.
So
Sorry,
the Preservation Trust passes it on to another nonprofit that has filled out and answered your RFP, that can now take over the Marble Museum. Is there any covenant that comes with that the collection must stay as a whole, or could they sell off parts and pieces of the collection?
So there's two things, right? The RFP is for transition ownership of the building. not the contents of the collection of the Marble Museum, right? So our responsibility is to, what we had committed to was finding a responsible steward of the collection, and ideally to preserve it in Proctor in the community. If at such time, if at some point the Marble Museum, as an independent nonprofit organization, has demonstrated the capacity to be able to be that steward of the collection in the archives, then we would ultimately look to transition ownership to them. If it was determined that they were never going to have that capacity and some other nonprofit entity in the community or region did demonstrate the capacity, then I think that's certainly something that we would explore in terms of transitioning the collection or portions of it to them. I have to be honest, maybe Lawrence has thought differently. It has that scenario, and whether or not we'd put a conveyance in there to prevent them from breaking it up hasn't really occurred to me before. But the ultimate goal and the reason we got involved in the first place was for as much of the collection to stay together and be properly stewarded as possible. And that's what we're totally committed to that. And I hope that addresses your concern.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else have any questions?
Just want to add on that. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the headquarters building was just sold last week.
Ah, good.
Oh,
Do we know who the buyer was?
Not yet. At least we didn't as of yesterday, Greg. I don't know if we've heard anything at this point. No.
Yeah, I did have long conversations with the housing folks, and they just weren't in a position to take it on when I talked to them.
If I could just say one last thing, and then I'm assuming we can go, but I would just say, like, this is only going to work. We're only going to see a positive outcome if there's this like continued dialogue and open communication, right? And so, like, it's great that Greg participated in our strategic planning process. I hope that we can continue to engage with him and with you. But I would just ask, like, if you're hearing concerns in the community, if you have concerns in the community, like, early and often, please, like, let us know, because the truth is, we want this to be a successful outcome. And I think we all at the Trust, we understand that it won't be if we can't have community engagement and partnership. So I would just really hope that we can keep the dialogue open, and I really appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you both for being on with us.
You bet. And I also did drop the LexisNexis link for the dog ordinance.
Oh, thank you.
Because the website for the legislature is only informal. The actual codification is at LexisNexis, and you have exactly the right language that VLCT puts out for everybody. So
thank you.
You're covered.
You're in charges for that, will you?
No. It's
You guys,
too much time in state government. I can't help myself.
All right.
Have a great evening, and thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Larry. All right.
Hey, moving on to good stuff. Does anybody have any good stuff?
So I have good stuff. Connor McCarran is the newest member of the 1,000 Point Club, which is a big deal. And if you're interested in watching home Proctor games, all of our games are streamed live on YouTube through the Huddle system. And you just go to PRHS Athletics, and it will come right up. Usually they don't go live till about 3 or 4 minutes before the actual game, because they're listening to music. Music's copyrighted. It can't be on YouTube, and they must have their music for warm up. So it's pretty exciting. Actually, all the schools in Quarry Valley have it. West Rutland, which is West Rutland Athletics, and Poultney. So even if you don't watch the game live, they're all stored on there, and you can go in and watch all of them. So it's a pretty cool system that we have the ability to be using.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, do you want to move to the highway department? Vermont Department of Transportation, Class 2 grant application.
So in front of you is the fiscal year 2022 municipal highway grant application, the Class 2 grant application. Stan had done one of these last year, actually, and it actually was 2 years ago. And last year it got kind of held up. They are going to go ahead and fund us from last year in the spring and summer. So we will be getting that grant moving forward. We have money carried over from the budget last year, the highway budget, that will take care of that last year's grant. But this one is sort of a continuation of that. If you looked at the list of roads that we had to be paved, that handwritten list, this section here for Class 2 was the next section that everybody had on the radar to be paved. This basically starts at the 5-way and moves north as far as the Class 2 designation, which I believe is where Florence Road takes the left. And then it goes up Florence Road to Pleasant. It's roughly 1,300 linear feet, very similar to, well, it's a little bit less than what we did last year. The other one is like a mile, the other grant. But this one will get us a good stretch of another Class 2 highway. And then the idea is that we'll continue to apply for this moving forward. We will fund it and continue all of our Class 2 highways and just sort of continue down Florence Road all the way out and keep moving. So I asked for your approval on this. This is an 80-20 grant, I believe. So the total estimated cost is $70,653, but the town's portion of that is only 20%, which is roughly, it's right around $19,000. We have that in our budget for next year. Moving forward, I would like to go ahead and budget for actual Class 2 paving. I looked back in the budget. A few years ago, it was budgeted as specific to Class 2 paving, but then the last year or two, we didn't do it specific to Class 2. I think that would be something we want to kind of get back to so that we can sort of separate our Class 2 from our Class 3 roadway paving projects. This will, if everything goes well, what I'd like to do is basically piggyback this on the other grant that we're getting. So we'll get all the paving done for the 2 grants. We'll get done both probably summertime if I can. I might wait until the fall, just depending on how the bridge goes. If I can utilize the pavers for the bridge, for the state's bridge, I'll try to do that as well. There might be some cost savings if I do that. But the idea would be to try to get both of these Class 2 paving projects done simultaneously.
Okay, so you just need a motion from one of us to approve the application?
Yes, and there's no signature required.
Is there a motion to approve the application for the highway?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, PACIF grant application.
So this is a 50-50 grant. It's typically for anything that's safety related, anything that PACIF sort of feels will reduce their potential liability. I've talked with John on this, and he said that what they could really use as far as they be in the water sewer department is a trench box. A trench box that's can sort of be manipulated to fit the trench and to fit the pipe and things like that. And the 2 trench boxes that I have in here will meet those needs. They basically are made to be taken apart in pieces as opposed to just full panels. So you can sort of manipulate the panels and make them into whatever you need them to be. The grant is a maximum of $5,000 on the PACIF side. And again, it's a 50-50, so that it's up to a maximum of $10,000. The trench box that I am proposing is the first one that you see there. It's from Allen Trench Safety. It's basically a 6-panel box, and it's coming in with shipping and everything at $7,820. So we would be responsible for half of that. This is unfunded, but I have looked at the budgets for water and sewer, and in the maintenance, and this can be considered maintenance of the system because that's what it's for. There's significant money still in there that we haven't utilized if we wanted to move forward. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that this is an unbudgeted expense. Again, it's a grant that possibly we weren't aware of at the time or whatever, but the opportunity is here, and it would be, again, for roughly an $8,000 trench box, it's going to cost us about $4,000.
So my question is, just because I do these every year, these passive grants, and if the funds get exhausted, do we have the money to pay for the total 7,800?
We would, yes. I mean, ideally, we wouldn't want to, of course, but yeah, if you look in the where we're at now with our current expenses in the water and sewer budget, there is a line item. I mean, I don't really want to take it from anywhere if I don't have to, of course, but because it's unbudgeted, what I thought I would do is under water, both water and sewer has a line item for system maintenance. It's called line repair, and right now in the water department, there's $14,000 that's unencumbered in that line item, and in the sewer department there is where is it here? Well, between manholes, and we're probably going to use the manholes. We'd like to leave that there, but there's also I'm trying to find that line item. There's still significant funds available as well. Equipment maintenance reserve fund, plant. Where is it? Line repair, I'm sorry, here we go. $9,200 still available in that line item. So we would be, we would be reducing both of those by a little less than $2,000 a piece if we receive the grant. Otherwise, Judy, to your point, otherwise, seems like the last time I did this, the grant, they tell us if we're going to receive the grant. It's a reimbursable grant, of course, but I don't know about your experience, but I think that they'll tell us whether or not we're going to get the grant.
Yeah, and that's why
Go ahead.
I assume you've submitted it already, or no?
No, I'm waiting because it needs your signature on it.
Okay, yeah, they normally will give you a heads up that it's going to be covered, because there's a lot that we don't cover that is still safety considered. Like we tried to get defibrillators and they won't cover those.
Well, so, I did get a trench box when I was in same grant in my previous town, and it wasn't an issue. I would just be more concerned about the funds being used up, but
right, yeah, because it's a first come first served basis.
Right.
Now, so they
we'll definitely make sure that the funds are there before we purchase this. And if the funds are not there, we just won't do it. We have a trench box. It's cumbersome. It's a little bit of a pain, but we can live with it if we had to.
Okay. All right. So is there a motion to approve the passive grant application?
Let's take a chance. Let's try.
Okay. Is that a second, Bruce?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
If we don't get the grant, though, I'd rather not see the money be spent.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Well, we won't do any expenditures until we verify the funds are there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the funds will probably be there again next year anyway. So if you probably, but.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I've actually used this for multiple things. We got traffic cones, we got safety gear like vests and jackets and all that, and we got the trench box. So it's a good grant. We should.
Right. Okay, salt usage report.
So here is I hope this is what you were looking for. This is a almost up-to-date salt usage report. I just talked with John. He said he got 2 more shipments of roughly 30 yards in each one. So let's add about 60 yards on top of this. But and so as of today, or as of when this was generated on the 17th, we were at about 70% of our salt. We purchased about 70%. John says that there's a roughly 200 yards still at the shop or available. So he's going to kind of use that up. So we might be able, once, with spring right around the corner, hopefully, we'll be able to sort of slow down how much we're purchasing, and very confident that we'll come in under budget or on budget.
Good. And you mean tons, not yards.
Tons.
What'd I say?
Yards.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Tons.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I noticed you're using more sand tonight.
Yeah.
I like sand.
Yeah, I went through Rutland, and Rutland needs some sand. They use a lot of salt.
Yeah,
But when that salt gets everything kind of mushy, you need sand on the hills to grit it. And it was pretty slick through there.
it's big salt too. It's like the size of rock.
Yeah, big blue stuff I saw on their trucks. Yeah.
Who do you buy from, Judy?
Cloud just went by the house, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
What did you say, Tom?
Who do you buy from?
Oh, I don't know who they bought from this year.
Must be different than us if
The
it's blue.
state bid was American Rock Salt.
Yep. That's who they went through last year. And then they had issues with it, I think, Tom.
Yeah, we did too.
Okay, anything else under highway? Okay, is there a motion to go into the Board of Water Commissioners?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So there's nothing here, but I did want to just touch bases with you. You had asked me at the last meeting to look at the delinquent water and sewer accounts and get you a report. I looked at what Stan had provided to you before, and it looked like it was more of an activity report, like who was delinquent, who was under a program, who was paying, who wasn't paying, things like that. And I assume that's what you were looking for from me. I did talk to Celia about it, and she's the one who puts that together. She told me that since the COVID and all that, they hadn't done anything, but that she will be getting, when she gets time, she will be putting together that same spreadsheet for you to have. It'll basically say who's delinquent and sort of what activity we've seen with them, if they're under a contract or an agreement, I guess. If they're under an agreement and if they're keeping with that agreement and sort of what we've seen. So I didn't provide anything because I was kind of waiting to see when Celia could get me that information, but I am assuming that's what you're looking for. Other than just numbers, you wanted to see sort of what the actual activity was with the accounts.
So do you think she could have it for us in the March? Because usually like April 1 is when we start, if things flip like with COVID and everything else and people are delinquent or we need water shutoffs or things like that, then we've got to be more on top of it, I think, before.
Yeah, I'll try to push her. I'll push her for the next meeting to get it ready for the next meeting. I don't think it's going to take very long. It's just something in NIMRIC that she has to do, I believe. And then that probably gets sent over to a spreadsheet. She's always said that she did it for Stan, and I don't know how to do that part. So I was kind of dependent on her to give me the information. So yeah, I will push her and see if I can't get that to you at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Good. That and the top ones on the list there, we'd like John or the water department start checking on shutoffs.
Okay.
And that should have been, just a continuous list from the last time we had it, basically, to just kind of, we made it through the top 10 of, okay, these guys are shut off now, just kind of continuing on. They probably moved up to the top. And there's probably other since, but.
In that spreadsheet that I saw that you guys had been given, I think it had that, right? It said this person, blah, 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 shut off, and maybe a date as to when they were shut off or when the curb stop was identified or curb stop was installed, type of thing. That's what I was kind of planning on getting you. I just need to get all the raw data.
And if they had a payment plan and if they were.
And if they were still keeping to that plan, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anything else underwater?
Are we in water or sewer?
We're in water.
We're in water. Okay.
Always better than being in sewer.
I have a sewer question.
We're always in the sewer. So you want to go into sewer, right? Is there a motion to go out of water commissioners and into the sewage commissioners?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. So basically the same thing with,
The list.
Yes.
yes, the list on here too.
Yes.
Okay. Carrie, you had a question or?
I do have a question. There was a sewer backup yesterday, and I'm just wondering if that was town responsibility.
No, John went out and checked it out, said it was on their side, and we were finished with it.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we like to hear. Okay. Is there anything else under sewage? Is there a motion to go out of sewage commissioners back to the regular select board meeting?
So move.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Beaver Pond Committee, request to use town office.
So Tom, I don't know if you want to speak to this or not.
Yeah, we haven't met all winter, and we were just hoping to get together and get our plan going for the summer. It sounds like COVID will be relaxing a little bit. So we were wondering if we could use the town hall or the skating rink, or we were looking for your advice. Don't everybody jump in now.
The town manager's advice. Well, I know we were supposed to meet in person tonight, and just because of, the executive order, which I believe we still could meet as long as we do the social distancing, the masks, and we allow the public to participate, which at that point, they'd probably all have to participate by Zoom still, because they couldn't fit in there with all of us in there as well. To make it easier anyway, or to say you 5 can come in, you 10 can't. So we decided not to meet in person at this point. If we do have, the technical additions, and we're able to basically, have like one laptop with a camera so we can all be seen, and then people can still call in on Zoom and see us all, I don't see any problem with that. I really don't. As far as the Beaver Pond meeting, the rinks always met in person from pretty much day one. I mean, we met outside, we were 6 feet, 10 feet apart and stuff. But then as time went on, we did move inside. There's only like 4 of us at a time, 5 of us at a time. And again, we kept the masks on, social distancing. So I don't have a problem with it if the committee wants to meet in person. I don't know how anybody else feels.
I mean, I don't see why not. We've been in school since September. There's been very few cases. As long as you do the appropriate steps, it should be fine.
Well, it's not a huge committee as usual. There's 5, 6 people carry.
Yeah.
Depending on what night, 5 or 6 people.
So I think even in the town office, you could easily be spread apart, don't you think? Around the room is a big circle instead of,
Yeah.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to need a table necessarily, so we could just place chairs spread out, and you could just do it that way.
All right, great. Thank you.
Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. Bruce, did you want to speak to the rink now while we're in standing committee?
Again, I was really disappointed with somebody coming in and damaging the ice. They've done that twice. And so I had an opportunity to chat with Megan. In fact, she called me after I sent her an email, and I guess both times it was people from out of town. I was thinking that it probably might have been in the evening, but it's been in the afternoon, and they've documented this with their cameras, which specify times and what have you. They also have license plates, numbers, and what have you. And it's been basically when the rink has been closed. And I was just wondering if we can't maybe add some no trespassing signs down there, or talk with the sheriff's department to see what they might be able to assist so it doesn't keep happening. I know we can't block the driveway because people using the carriage trail, but is it worth talking with the sheriff's department about that, Greg, and asking if we put up no trespassing signs at the kind of the entrance way? I know I was over there today The entranceway is really, really wide, and if we had a substantial snowstorm, if they could narrow it up, put some signs there, and make sure that the sheriff's department knew when the rink was closed, that if they were here. Both of these incidents happened between noon and 5 o'clock.
I think it's something that we could definitely get the sheriff involved. I think maybe we could, to help them out, maybe we could do an open closed flag. We have one of those out there, right? Isn't there an A-frame, or there's some sort of a sign out there that is put up when the rink is open, correct?
They usually rope off like the inch on when you're getting onto the ice, they'll put like horse or something, sawhorse there sometime, or a sign saying, rink's closed, please stay off. Obviously. But
nothing closer to the roadway then.
No, I don't.
So I think we need to talk about a couple things. We need to, we want to get the signs that say no trespassing, because then it's a done deal. Even though it's a public facility, it's closed. There's trespassing on it.
You can't put signs on a public thing, and we have a grant. You can't just put no trespassing.
But does it have hours of operation, just like a park would have hours of operation?
Well, we don't have that on our park. It's the same kind of property. It's the same thing as Beaver Pond. You can't just put a no trespassing sign up.
But it's got hours when it's open and hours when it's closed, right? Beaver Pond has hours of operation.
Well, not right now, but yes.
Yeah.
But I think I agree with Carrie. I think we're speaking more like this is just the ice. We don't want kids on the ice.
Yeah.
The property itself, I wouldn't want a no trespassing sign, because if I can't just walk up by there, and so then how specific do we get? No trespassing to out of towners between, when the rink is closed, or what? I think it just, I find it hard to, how do we kind of.
Right. There's no way to no trespass, just ice.
That's my only.
Put a fence around it.
No.
I don't see why the sheriff can't really spend some time, if they know what days the rink is closed.
Oh, we could ask them to drive by there, I would think, and say, hey, if it's closed, swing by, and if you see kids, then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already patrolled. The rink is already patrolled, just like the rest of town is patrolled. We could ask them to do an extra patrol, but I don't think I want to ask them to sit there.
Oh,
and I think it would help to have some
there, but on the days that it's closed, that they cruise by there every hour. That's not a big deal, I think.
I think that's an easy ask. Also, I don't know if it would help to have some sort of an external sign, whether it be a flag or a sign on the door, something saying open and closed, so that when they drove by, they knew, okay, the rink is closed, yet there's people on it, or it's open. We know that there shouldn't be anybody there. Maybe that would help them to recognize when they should and should not be going in there and talking with somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe it's simple as a flag, an open flag that everybody has those anymore.
If they have video of the vehicles and the people, why don't they just turn those over to the sheriff?
Well, they weren't sure whether they wanted to clear it with us.
Well, I think it's because what do we have in terms of violation? We have nothing in writing that it's a violation.
It's a public space, unfortunately.
Well, if they're damaging public property, I'm sure there's an ordinance against that somewhere.
Seems though there ought to be some way that we can have a little better handle on that. They spend an awful lot of time making the repairs to the ice because they really dug it up.
Well, I think we could definitely tell them, hey, look, I'm talking to the sheriff. When this rink is closed, the management is not there, there should be nobody on that ice. And then as they patrol, and then have some sort of a sign or some sort of indication outside that lets them know when it's open, when it's closed, so that whenever they are patrolling, they know when there should and shouldn't be somebody there.
Yeah,
I think that's a good start.
yes. I think they'd appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you, Greg.
And I certainly don't have a problem with them turning that video over to the sheriff.
No, I don't either. But whether the sheriff can do that and do anything without signage that said, stay off the ice or something,
Let's
Even if
try
it's
it and see what happens.
scare.
Yeah,
If you can't do something legally and just says, hey, next time you're going to be, you're not allowed there anyway if you're out of town, but
yeah,
it's just rotten that they do that.
yes.
It is.
Okay, we'll work on some sort of a sign, whether it be a flag or an open close of some kind. And then I'll talk to the sheriff.
Are we using the sign in front of the town office, or do we have another one like the front of the town office? When Celia puts it out that says water bill due, blah, 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 taxes due. Do we have another one like that?
I thought they had one at the rink. I thought I saw one at the rink.
And if they have one like that at the rink, then
Like a sandwich sign kind of thing.
yeah.
I think they do to say masks required and social
Yes, they do.
That.
Yes.
They have that.
So they could possibly change it. It's a pain, but they could possibly change that to at least they have something right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
we
there
could
one
go.
at the pool, Is there one?
we must have, is there some extra funds that they could buy one of those signs? I think they're a couple $100 with the letters on it.
I think isn't there another one at the pool though that we could use? They wouldn't have to take it apart.
I could go down tomorrow and get an open flag and a flag holder tomorrow. I think you can get them at Walmart. I'm sure you can get them at Ace Hardware. We could probably get our hands on them pretty quick.
Yeah, just like the market or Franklin's has like open sign.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'll take one of theirs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Review bills. Any questions on the bills? Bless you.
Not I.
Yes.
So was there a bill for the town reports yet? Do we know how much the town reports cost? I see that we paid postage, but I didn't see any bill for the town reports.
I will tell you real quickly. We haven't gotten the invoice yet.
Okay.
But I think, let's see if I still have it here with me. Let me look on my email real quick. I'll get you real quick. I can tell you what she quoted me. All right, let's see here. Okay, so her quote was $2,312. So, and we followed, I haven't seen the final page count, but that was for 82 pages. And I don't know, I don't have it. Let's see, how many pages did it come out to be?
How many copies did we have?
Yeah, we got 855, same as last year.
I think next year we should go out to bid for these because.
So, yeah, we had planned on it. Actually, Celia and I had talked about that. So the bill is going to come in significantly higher because that last year, that 82 pages that we had quoted that we asked for, we did not put in the
The audit.
The audit, yes, sir. We just put in the front page of the audit and not the body. Come to find out from what Celia had found out and what I looked at, it says that it's an auditor's report and it's required that the full audit be in there. So that's why we saw an increase of pages because we ended up with 122 pages
Right.
in our town report.
Yeah.
And so, let's see, each copy, we're looking at each plus or minus 2 pages and 84 to 122, which is 16, 22, 30, 38. Times 36.4. 5. That's $692 more. So we're going to be close to $3,000.
So just so you know, because when I do the annual report, I've gone out for bids for the last 3 years. And this year, we normally get, I think it's 3,000 copies. This year, I wanted to keep it under $3,000. So we did 15, but we did 1,500 copies. And my book is 174 pages for 3,000.
And so do you know how much you were getting per page? How much they were charging per page?
I think they didn't charge per page. They just charged
Okay.
per book and how many.
Well, it's like I said, Celia and I had actually had that same conversation that we need to put this out to bid next year. Just to keep everybody fair as it is.
Yeah.
Because right now they're charging us $3 or $36.45 for 2 pages.
Yeah.
That's a front and back.
Right. And I mean, it's not like it's a ton of money, but I'm just saying why not? I mean, it's.
No, sure. Well, and again, just to keep everybody honest, you put it out to bid, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And these guys are great that I deal with now.
Okay.
I send them a proof and they turn it around within a day to me to look at. So.
Right. Yeah, Repro kind of dropped the ball a little bit on this because the day that it was due back to me for review, she said, well, I was looking at the format and the format's all wrong. The size of all the documents are wrong. And I ended up having to manually print everything off and they sent a courier to pick it up and it was kind of a mess. But she waited till the day that it was due back to us. So we were actually about a day and a half late on getting it back, but it still got sent out on time.
All right. So the bills are okay with everybody else?
Yeah.
All right. San Souci agreement.
So this is just a continuation from the last meeting about the utility reappraisal contract.
Any thoughts from anybody on that?
We don't need to do anything, do we?
We
Well, we
need,
did-
I need an approval to
We didn't
utilize.
approve it last time.
I thought we approved his,
That was the original, but then this was to come back, like, I'll remember he wanted to come back, like you said,
Yeah, update it.
and we kind of questioned, because he said that you'll probably still be sued, or they'll probably question it every year. And so I said, well, what's the point of paying you this much money and it's not gonna win the case every time or something? I don't know. But we all tabled it. We didn't vote on it to prove it.
I make a motion, we approve this, the San Souci contract here.
Second, we're in this already, so we can't back out now.
But you can back out, or you can find another assessor, or we should have an assessor anyway who can do this, plus not have assessors.
Well,
Someone who's capable of doing the utilities as well, is my thought. But this is like an ongoing thing, and I'm just concerned with him. I just want him to basically do a comparison, so they're both in, like, we know what they're comparing, the apples to apples, instead of one method versus another method. And he made it sound like this is just going to be a repeat every year.
Well, this is quite a chunk of change for the utilities, and
yeah,
Oh, I know.
they got full-time lawyers on the staff with nothing to do.
yeah.
Um,
I don't think we can let up right at the moment.
Definitely not. They're jerking us around here.
Yeah, and if we don't put our backs up a little bit and fight it a little bit, we're not gonna come out at all.
Yeah, I mean, even if we get 25% of what we're looking for, we're still ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And I expect we'll get more than that. There's a motion on the floor.
Yep. Is there a second?
Yeah, I seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ben, did you say aye?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, motion carries. Tax map maintenance proposal.
So this is the same thing I'm sure you see every year. This is just the next year. The company who does our tax map for us, they go in, they look at all the, any changes to the tax map, any changes in ownership, things like that, and they update our tax maps for us. So this is an annual contract. And the mapping service is $1,000 and then $1,500 billing charge, but I don't think there's been much of that. So we're looking at basically a base of $1,000 to do all the tax mapping and the GIS that goes along with it.
Yeah, we get money from the state for that.
To supplement some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the tax map maintenance proposal?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Facility use agreement for Proctor Junior Senior High School.
So the junior senior high school is asking to use the skate rink for physical education classes March 4th and March 5th.
That winter carnival, Ben?
No, we didn't have a carnival per se this year because of COVID.
Okay, what's this?
PE class.
This gym.
I have no problem. Is there a
No,
motion to approve?
should we run this by the recreation committee first, or are we good?
Tiffany's already spoken with Megan about
Right.
it.
Usually Megan knows before we do.
Yeah.
She did.
And they've done this every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, somebody has to clean now.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Town election, informational meeting, town informational meeting a week from today. So I had him Greg put this on there because we're actually going to do a run through tomorrow with Dale just to make sure the technical piece is all set up and we kind of know the dynamics. We're not, and I think I may have mentioned this in our last meeting, that there will not be a moderator in the informational meeting. We could have, but we'll run it just like a select board meeting. So the league did offer a whole page of verbiage for me to read out to everybody to explain the whole situation and the process. So that's kind of what tomorrow night, I just want to make certain that the technical piece is okay. So once people start popping in, and then I think, so Greg will be on it as well. And then I think Dale is going to be the one basically who's muting people, correct, Greg?
Yeah, so I wanted him to be available to let people in, mute people, shut them up if they need to be shut up. When people are raising hands virtually or whatever, that they're given an opportunity to speak. So he's going to be sort of navigating and coordinating the Zoom aspect of this.
Yeah.
And who's
So I'll
this?
just run it like a normal meeting, and if someone has something to say, I can ask. Their question is, they're only given a certain period of time to talk. If they raise their hand again, they're not talking again until everyone else has been heard. It's not meant to be any argument or changing of votes. It's basically to ask questions and to kind of do comparisons with other people in the town, what their views are on something.
And that's Dale who?
Yep.
Christie.
Okay.
Yeah, he has volunteered to herd the cats.
Good.
He's a
And
computer.
like they said, they warned us, they said, no meeting is perfect and this is a first for everybody. So if there's bumps and hiccups, then so be it.
Yeah. Good. What time is this happening?
5.
What?
You mean tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, 5 tomorrow. I didn't know if you meant the meeting or, yeah, tomorrow we're doing it at 5. So Greg, I'm stopping in I'll be there.
Okay. Yeah, yes. Okay.
Okay.
And I think Dale's going to be here as well, right?
Yes.
All three of us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want us there too?
If you want, you don't have to be, because it's basically, we're just kind of making certain we have it all set up. I mean, if you want to be like guinea pigs, so you can see if you can call in and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that may be more important, is having all these users come in and
Right.
seeing how we kind of navigate through that, as opposed to having, it's not a real meeting. We're not necessarily opening any meeting. It'll be
Right.
a test meeting.
But we just have to be careful. If there's more than 3 of us, it's another
Right.
meeting.
No,
Yeah.
you're fine. It is. It doesn't matter. All of us can be on. It's not a meeting. It's
Yeah,
just,
we're not talking any business whatsoever. It's just,
It's just
um,
a technical piece
I'm
of
just,
it.
I'm a little more concerned with the bandwidth issue, is once we get all those users running through it at once, how it's going to work. So it's
Yeah.
more of a hardware, software sort of a test than anything.
And I honestly, from what I've got, just from certain people, like a lot of people aren't interested in participating,
Right.
you
Right.
know, so numbers
Well,
might, but
You really can't make any real changes. You can just listen and comment.
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you want, Greg, if you have like a number set up for that tomorrow and just shoot it to everybody. So if you guys do want to call in, then we can at least know it's working. At least, because I'd rather have you guys be able to get in more than,
Yeah. I'll shoot you the test ID number.
okay.
Sure.
Perfect.
So let's talk about the town meeting. So next Monday,
Mhm.
are we supposed to Zoom in? Are we supposed to go to the town office?
You don't have, you can zoom in.
Yeah.
So, okay, then the next question is, we're doing the hearing before we start the town meeting, correct? The bond?
Yeah. So the informational meeting for the bond will
Yeah,
open
bond.
right before the town informational meeting.
Yeah.
So
For the other
Alder
things.
Janelli going to come in right at, is it 7:00? And 7:00, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they do their thing, then we'll close that, and Judy will open up the informational meeting for the town election.
Okay. In the past, have we mailed out that information to people, or have we just left it for them to come either to the library, the town office, or electronically look at it? I cannot remember.
Well, we've never done it before, so this is a first.
Well,
So
I-
the town meeting they just knew about.
So we sent out the little postcards that had information that basically said this is all online. If you need more information, get on the town's website. And then when you get on the website, it gives you the links to all the warnings and how to get to all the meetings and everything. That's sort of that's the outreach that I guess we did to people, as well as I think it's on Facebook. But
Okay.
Yeah, and I think in the past, because when there was a bond issue, it was at town meeting. You know, so everybody came to regular town meeting and they knew the bond was part of the
Well,
agenda,
we have had other bond meetings that weren't part of
the
town
regular
meeting.
town meeting.
But I couldn't remember if we mailed out that information or we just had people come. I mean, I can't even remember. I think it was the town office one we had in the summer.
Yeah, so I don't think we've ever done a Zoom type thing,
No.
so.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to know if we were, if this is what we usually do and if we were still doing it the usual way. So,
And is everybody planning on counting votes the next day?
I do
Well-
plan on that.
I'll be there.
we're getting the tabulator. It's all going to be, all the costs for the tabulator and everything will be reimbursed through the state. So we've gone forward with the tabulator.
We've still got to count write-ins, though.
Yeah, we hope there's not a lot of write-ins.
This is Proctor.
And then
Yeah.
there's school vote. This,
why does no other place, because nobody else has write-ins, is that it? Like no other town does write-ins, counts them. The city doesn't count write-ins. They tabulate everything. There's not enough write-ins to even consider.
Hmm.
I don't know why we do.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
He's a stickler for that. We have to do everyone, Donald Ducks, all of them.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
yeah.
I'm gonna find a law that says we don't have to do it.
Good, I hope so. That
I'm
would
okay
save
with
an
it.
hour at least.
I'll write it really quick before that day. All right. Okay, let's see. Where are we now? Hazard mitigation plan, RP.
Yes. So every 5 years, the town is required to do a hazard mitigation plan. It's a FEMA document. And the last one was done April 10th of 2017. So it's coming back up. In anticipation of this, Rutland Regional Planning has, they applied for a grant from the federal government, and they received that grant. So now towns are going out, sending out RFPs for consultants to come in and help out with rewriting this. What I wanted to give you was the third sheet there has a pink box on it. This came from the planning department, came from Rutland Regional Planning, about what the contribution looks like. There is a significant amount potentially of in-kind that the town could put into this, so it's not all cash funds. But I just wanted to sort of get the ball rolling. I'd like to get, maybe at the next meeting, we can have a final discussion on this and get this RFP out. But I just wanted you to kind of take a look at the how the contributions work and you know, kind of see how we want to move forward on that.
Okay.
Regional does a good job.
Yes.
Okay.
So at the next meeting, you know, I will go ahead and make this more of a finalized document, and we'll sort of move forward on that. And like to get this put out as there's actually some towns that already have this. It's already complete and they've already got it out to advertisement. So, but I just want to touch bases, let you know that it was coming, and what the financially what it looks like. Again, it's unfunded. It's not a lot of money, but it is unfunded. So, you know, we'll have to find it somewhere, which I'm confident we can.
Okay. All right, Rutland County Sheriff report.
I'm all set.
All set.
Okay. Budget status report.
So if you see that that anomaly or that egregious line item there for the rec field has been fixed. That was a coding error on my part. So that has all been adjusted and the right amounts have been put in the right places and it's now back in the black where it belongs. Other than that, everything else is I think, overall looking really good so far. I have talked to John. We are already at our budget for vehicle expenses in the highway department, and I've told him that he needs to kind of watch that really closely now. We're going to have to, you know, sharpen our pencils moving forward and only do the absolute necessity as far as new parts and things. But the van tracks thing was kind of costly this year. They had some motor issues and some other issues with it that put that line item in a place where it didn't need to be. But he's aware of it and I'm aware of it and we will watch it.
Hey,
Any other questions on the budget?
I saw that, and the other thing I saw was the well house repair. Holy jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was where we talked about the pump where it went bad. Or actually not the pump, I'm sorry, the motor and the controller both went bad. And
speed.
yeah, that was $22,000 to pull that thing and fix it and put the new one in, and get it wired up correctly and get everything back. It was $22,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
That wasn't that old.
Now it's like 5 years old, I believe.
Yeah, I don't believe it was that old.
Yes, it wasn't under warranty.
No. And John has been talking with the people who put in that controller, and they have a, I don't know what they actually call it, but it's sort of like a surge protector type thing that they think might help with some of the issues that we're seeing on that motor and that pump and some of the short cycling that might be happening or the shorting that might be happening. It's something that actually goes in the controller and keeps it from arcing, or it's some electrical term that I'm not totally aware of, but it's something we're looking into, that they are the manufacturers and the people who program that controller are recommending that we install in that to maybe fix some of the problems with this.
Yeah. Yeah, let's look into what the cost of that is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an arc arrestor or something like that, they call it.
Okay, other new or old business?
Let's
Gary,
see.
the Rutland County solid waste fine, does that affect Proctor?
I'm sure it's in their budget.
It's already taken care of. That's really, so there's a Chittenden County fine. That's a new one, but that has nothing to do with us. The other fine is older. It has to do with
Hazardous waste and storage and
nothing. nothing like that is going to affect anything for this budget. If you're there are a couple other fines that are past, they're older, but they have nothing to do with the garbage. They had to do with the new gate and
Oh, that, yeah, it was in the,
somebody taking
Yeah.
it upon themselves to use an excavator and move some things in the wetlands.
is-
And we
Yeah.
just will leave that person unnamed.
yeah,
Did that.
yeah, we know who the name was.
But the fine that was in the paper there recently.
That
hazardous
was-
waste.
I thought that was Chittenden County.
Okay, I
No,
thought it said
Rutland.
Rutland
That was
County.
Rutland County.
Yeah, it was a 2019 violation, I think.
Yeah,
Oh, then it's already like,
3,700 or 37,000.
1,000, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
37.
Okay. Okay, the only other thing, I was just wondering, Ben, you mentioned earlier about the marble building being sold.
Mm-hmm.
That's news. I didn't hear anything about that.
I just happened to be at the town clerk's office when the lawyer called to do the closing. I think they closed on it last week.
Oh, so he sold it, huh?
Huh.
Yep.
I'll check with Celia and Rhoda tomorrow and find out who it
I
was.
wonder what they're gonna do with it.
There was
Yes,
two
they would
buyers that were interested, apparently. One was just a woman who was going to make it her home. But that fell through, and they don't know who the other buyer is. The same lawyer who was handling both.
Oh, wow. That's quite a house.
An awful lot to heat, that's for sure.
Sleep in a different room every night. All right. Okay. Sorry. It was brought to my attention to go to an executive session. Is that still the case?
I would like to, yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to go into the executive session to discuss personnel issues?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Uh,
All right. Board meeting. I don't believe there was any motion to come out of there for anything to vote on or discuss.
No decisions were made.
No. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Time.
All right. Thanks,
Night,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.